JP, and thank you all for being here. And obviously, big turnout today to get the straw poll results. It's a joke, no straw poll this year, so obviously a few empty seats. I do want to thank our co-sponsors again. You know, we started this out 7 years ago. It was basically FRC launching this. Now we have folks that are standing in line to be co-sponsors, and we're very proud of our co-sponsors. We have the Heritage Foundation, American Values, American Family Association. We have just a whole group of folks at Liberty Institute, Liberty College, Liberty University. And we're glad to have a coalition effort here in bringing an emphasis to the value voter issues. And of course, you've heard those on display this weekend with, I think, a fantastic lineup of speakers. Just want to give you a couple stats, then I'll be happy to take any questions you have. And I know you're getting your 20 minutes of vitamin D out here, and I'll make that as short as possible. But we have closing in on about 2,500 folks that are registered that have been here. A little less than last year because Ron Paul buses didn't roll in this morning. We were waiting for them, but they didn't show up. But this is one of the highest attendances we've had in the 7 years. A lot of energy. If you've been in the room, you've seen that. Folks are energized going into this election. I will tell you, I would draw the strongest contrast between this values voter gathering and 4 years ago. There was some ambivalence in the 2008 election. There is no ambivalence in the 2012 election. These value voters are getting their instructions. This is the huddle in the fourth quarter with 2 minutes to go, and the plan is being laid out, and I have no doubt that value voters are going to be going around the country executing that plan in the next 52 days. We also had really good response online. We know we had over 25,000 live views, streams as of yesterday, so it's getting a lot of attention online as well. Top Twitter item yesterday. So great conference. We're very pleased with the results. Glad you're here, and I'll be happy to take any questions you might have. All right, thanks for coming. It's been good to see you. Question is, it's 2012, what's the most important issue for values voters? Well, if you're a values voter and you're sitting around the table trying to figure out how you're going to pay the mortgage for the month, the mortgage is the most important issue. If you're trying to figure out, after you've been 6 months unemployed, that's the most important issue. There is no question that the economy, we got the QE3, monetizing the debt, where every dollar we've had in our pocket has been devalued. You've heard that economic message here this weekend, but you've also heard a message about foreign policy. You know, the security of America is at risk. It's been unfolding as we've been here this weekend. People understand that we have a failed foreign policy from this administration. Those are all issues. Those of you who have been here and have been a part of these events and truly track quote-unquote values voters understand they're a little more complex than they're given credit to be. Yes, the life issue matters. Yes, the marriage issue. You've heard all of that talked about here this week. You've also heard about the economy. You've also heard about foreign policy. I would say it's a mixture of issues. I would not say there is one issue driving this election. I would say it is the poor economic environment that we're presently in as a nation, and as well as the moral, cultural, and social decline of this country. I think you take both those issues together, you have a very motivated base of values voters.
What about religious freedom? I've heard that thing a lot.
Yeah, that's a part of the culture. That's a part of the culture. It is. I don't know if you. Yesterday, when Paul Ryan spoke, I was. I kind of listen to where the applause lines are, because if they're good, I'll use them. And Paul Ryan, he really got the applause on two really, I think, main issues. One was freedom, basic freedom, religious freedom, and then on the life issues. So people are aware that we're losing our freedoms, in particular religious freedom, As Matt, have you seen, it's been an issue that's been repeated throughout the weekend here, religious freedom. Yes?
Senator Santorum said in his final debate that libertarian debates wanted different cases from conservatives, and I know there's really no libertarian point of here. Do you think there's a way for libertarians and conservatives to
Oh, I do, and I think actually Rick Santorum has been doing, his candidacy was a large part of that by making the economic argument for marriage and family. I mean, when you look at the libertarian viewpoint, which I share in terms of I want a smaller government, I want less government, but how do you do that? Well, you strengthen the American family, because if you look at the government that has expanded, it has expanded to make up where the family has been in decline. And that is a large part of the large deficit. The $16 trillion debt that we have is in large part to make up for the family. So right there is a good starting point to bring libertarians and social conservatives together. It's an economic issue, but it's a cultural and moral issue as well.
At this conference about that moment in the Democratic convention, those 3 votes spoke out and there's back to the platform. And I wonder, is that just like a laugh line, or is that something that you really think is a big moment that is a big energizing moment?
I think it's a very telling moment. You look back, it was 58 years ago when the Congress added "Under God" to our pledge, where they adopted the motto "In God We Trust" as a national motto. They made that at the height of the Cold War, when our nation, the future was uncertain. People were uncertain about the future, the security and the safety of their families. And they wanted to make clear that they stood on the side of God. Well, I would argue that the threat that we face today is even greater than it was in the Cold War. We had the USSR was a huge threat, but we could see them. We could in some ways contain that threat, or at least we could recognize the threat. Just this week, where we have had embassies across the world, around the world, have been attacked. We've had threats into some of our own institutions on our own soil. I would say that the threat that we face as Americans today to our security is even greater. And if there was ever a time that we needed to be identifying ourselves with God, it is now. And I think there was pushback to the quote-unquote oversight by the Democratic Platform Committee, and that's why they went back and made this oblique reference to God in terms of God-given abilities. I think it's a huge issue. It's a very telling issue. Yes?
2 United States presidents warned us that we should limit our re-involvement with foreign powers. Washington said that to Hamilton, indicating we had enough resources here and it wasn't too bad to make it on our own. Roosevelt re-engaged heavily with the oil activity in the Saudi desert after World War II, and we have built up quite a dynasty of power, political power, and we're tangled, of course, every time we go to the gas pump, we see it. If we were to go back to indigenous energy, much more focused on it here in this presidency, what do you think would be the outcome of the threat that we're facing right now?
Well, I mean, it's not just our entanglement internationally from our energy sources, although I am a strong advocate for developing our own sources and resources, natural resources, God-given resources. I'm not afraid to say that. They are God-given natural resources that are here for our use. He put them here for us to discover and use. But I would also say this, in the year 2012, in this age of global communications, we do not live in an isolated world, and we cannot isolate ourselves. We are a part, I'm not going to use the word of a global community, but we are a part of a international neighborhood, so to speak, and we have to learn how to effectively, and I believe, and I'm going to use this term unapologetically, lead. We are a leader. We are an economic leader. We are a military leader. Who do they call on when the world needs help? They call on the United States. They call on the United States military. Call on the Marine Corps. They call on the Army. They call on us to help keep the world safe. Don't always agree with our missions, but the reality is we're a leader. And I believe it's time for America to act like a leader again in our foreign policy. And that, I believe, is what has led to our problems that we're seeing unfolding today. Yes, Rosie?
I was speaking with someone attending the conference here yesterday who told me he thought it was a major diss, in his words, that Governor Romney himself had to appear at the conference as opposed to a video. And I know that Governor Romney has spoken here in the past. Do you think the Romney campaign should have sent the presidential candidate as well as the vice presidential candidate?
You'll be hard-pressed to find, other than the Republican convention, where you have both the vice presidential nominee and the presidential nominee show up at the same place. I think I have been communicating regularly with the campaign. I have met with the candidate, and I will say he even called me on the day that FRC was attacked and the shooting took place. He called to extend his condolences, his thoughts, his prayers for our team and for Leo in particular. So I will say that the communications we have had with this campaign and their responsiveness to the issues we care about has actually been better than any candidate or campaign that I have worked with in the 9 years that I have been at FRC. Now, that does not mean that he is the one that I am most ideologically aligned with. He and I I've said this many times, I said it to him, we share some significant theological differences when it comes to our personal faith. But we have a shared concern for this country, a very deep concern. And we also share a set of values that we both believe will help get this nation back on the right track. And that's the bridge between me and Mitt Romney. That's the bridge between Mitt Romney and value voters. It's those values that we hold in common. And that's why I feel confident that many of the voters who set out in 2008 because they did not connect with John McCain, and John McCain actually talked less about the value issues than Mitt Romney is. Mitt Romney's talking about these issues. Paul Ryan's speech was very clear on those issues, and the message that Mitt Romney sent to us, the personal message he sent to the delegates here, the attendees, was very clear on those issues. So I in no way, let me be very explicit, in no way do I feel like he has slighted value voters or us. I feel that he has been very responsive, and I am very encouraged by what I see unfold. We're in an age of unconventional warfare in which we are fighting an enemy that is oftentimes hard to see. I do think that this whole incident in Libya should raise, again, going back to what I said earlier, should raise questions about our overall foreign policy strategy, as well as the president's refusal to abide by what I believe is, I shouldn't say that, abide by what many believe was violated when he committed forces to Libya without congressional approval. And now we have empowered the very ones who have taken the lives of Americans. Someone needs to be held accountable for that decision. Someone needs to be held accountable for the actions. And that's what I think the message you've heard here over the weekend is. As a country, I think Americans and I think value voters want America to lead. We are tired of this lead from behind strategy that gets us kicked in the tail. We want to go and lead the nation because we believe that we have a better way. And that better way has been shown over the last 236 years. It has prospered us, it has established us, and we have a choice to make. And I believe that's what this election comes down to. We can choose to lead, or we can choose to fall into, I think, a path of least resistance, but a path of following those who are eager to lead the world. And we see what they have to offer as it's been unfolding over the Middle East, even in the last 72 hours. I have time, one more question, yes. Good question. Is there a difference between the values that female voters have in general and the female values voters? Well, Walmart doesn't think so. I mean, look, it's about living better. It's about providing more for your family. And you know what? I have found that while we may give voice to issues like life and marriage, all that leads into a stable and a free and a prosperous society and culture in which our children can do best. I think if you would allow me to be a little more specific in saying, what does every mother in America want? I believe every mother in America wants their children to grow up and have opportunity, to be able to play in safe neighborhoods, to have a good education, and to prosper. And that is something, that is a value that every mother in America, almost every mother in America shares. And so while we give voice to these values, there are many, many others all across this country that share in those values, and we're pleased to have the opportunity, because of our supporters across this nation, every year to give voice and attention to those issues here at the Values Voter Summit. So thank you all for being here. I see that you've gotten your share of sunshine for today, and I hope you enjoy the afternoon.